They say fame changes you. They say it slowly, like it's a warning, like it's something you can prepare for. But nobody tells you that it doesn't just change you. It replaces you, piece by piece. Until one day you're standing in front of a mirror in a mansion you don't remember buying, wearing a watch you don't remember wanting, and you can't recognize the man staring back. That's where I was, 3 years into a max contract, 2 all-star selections, endorsement deals that made my agent smile wider than my mother ever did, and a loneliness so deep I could feel it in my bones every time the crowd went silent. I was coming back from a 6-game road trip. We'd won 5 of them. I'd averaged 32 points, 8 assists, and played every fourth quarter like my life depended on it. The media called me clutch. My teammates called me a killer. My coach called me the future. But when I walked into that empty locker room after the final buzzer, with the champagne still wet on the floor and the cameras finally gone, all I felt was nothing. The flight back home was quiet. I sat alone in first class, hood up, headphones on, music off. I just wanted the hum of the engines to drown out the noise in my head. My agent, Marcus, had texted me 4 times during the flight. Something about a new sneaker deal. Something about a charity event. Something about my image. I didn't reply. The car service dropped me off at the gate just after midnight. The mansion sat on 12 acres outside the city, surrounded by woods and a man-made lake that the previous owner had installed for reasons I never bothered to ask about. It was supposed to be peaceful, private, a place where I could escape the madness, but peace never really came. I punched in the code, and the iron gates groaned open. The driveway curved through the trees, lit by soft ground lights that made everything look like a movie set. I hated it. I hated how perfect it looked, how fake. As I pulled up to the circular driveway, I saw something that made my chest tighten. The front door was open. Not wide open, just cracked, like someone had left in a hurry. I killed the engine and sat there for a moment, my hands still gripping the steering wheel. My mind went through the possibilities. Security malfunction. Cleaning crew. Maybe I'd left it open myself last week and just forgot, but I knew better. I stepped out of the car, leaving my bags in the trunk, and walked slowly toward the entrance. The air was cool, almost cold, and I could hear the lake in the distance, the soft lapping of water against the shore, rhythmic and unnerving. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The house was dark except for a single light coming from the kitchen. Everything looked untouched. No broken glass, no overturned furniture, nothing that screamed robbery or break-in, but something was wrong. I could feel it. I moved through the foyer, my footsteps echoing on the marble floor, and that's when I saw it. A wet trail leading from the kitchen toward the back patio. Not water, lake water. You could tell by the smell. Earthy, stale. My heart started pounding. I followed the trail through the living room, past the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the lake, and out onto the stone patio. The night was darker now, clouds covering the moon, and the only light came from the dim glow of the outdoor fixtures, and that's when I saw her, standing at the edge of the lake, her back to me, long dark hair tied up in a messy bun, wearing a black jacket I used to love on her and jeans that were soaked up to the knees. Vanessa, my ex-girlfriend, the woman I hadn't seen or spoken to in over a year. The woman who'd left me 2 weeks before I signed my first major contract, saying she couldn't handle the pressure, couldn't handle the person I was becoming. She was holding something, dragging it actually. A suitcase, old, battered, the kind you'd see in a thrift store. It looked heavy. I opened my mouth to call out to her, but something stopped me. Maybe it was the way she was moving, frantic, desperate. Or maybe it was the way she kept looking over her shoulder, like she was being hunted. She reached the edge of the dock, crouched down, and with a grunt, shoved the suitcase into the water. It hit with a loud splash, sank a few inches, then started to drift. But it didn't go under. Not right away. Vanessa stood there breathing hard, watching it, waiting for it to disappear. And then she turned. Our eyes met across the darkness. For a moment, neither of us moved. Her face was pale, streaked with something that might have been tears or lake water or both. Her eyes were wide, wild, like she'd just woken from a nightmare and wasn't sure it was over. Then she ran, not toward me, away, through the trees, stumbling over roots and stones, her footsteps crashing through the underbrush until the sound faded completely. I stood there, frozen, trying to process what I'd just seen. Vanessa, in my house, throwing a suitcase into my lake, running like her life depended on it. I should have called the cops. I should have called Marcus. I should have done 100 different things. But instead, I kicked off my shoes, pulled off my jacket, and waded into the lake. The water was freezing. It hit me like a slap, and for a second I thought about turning back. But I kept moving, my eyes locked on the suitcase as it bobbed a few feet away, half submerged, the zipper straining against whatever was inside. I grabbed it by the handle and dragged it back to shore, my hands numb, my breath coming in sharp bursts. I dropped it on the grass and knelt down beside it, my heart hammering in my chest. The zipper was rusted, stuck halfway open. I yanked at it, once, twice, until it gave way with a metallic screech. And then I opened it. For a long moment, I just stared. Inside wasn't what I expected. No drugs, no money, no stolen goods. It was photos, hundreds of them. Old ones, new ones, printed on glossy paper and stuffed into every corner of the suitcase. Photos of me, photos of Vanessa, photos of us together, back when things were good, back when I was still just a kid with a dream, and she was the girl who believed in me. But that wasn't all. Underneath the photos, buried beneath layers of memories I thought I'd buried myself, was something else, something that made my stomach drop. A stack of letters, bound together with a thick rubber band. My name written on every envelope in handwriting I didn't recognize. Neat, calculated, professional. I pulled one out with shaking hands and tore it open. The letter was dated 2 years ago, right around the time Vanessa and I broke up, right around the time I signed the biggest contract of my life. It was from Marcus, my agent, and as I read the first line, my blood ran cold. Vanessa, I need you to stay close to him, just a little longer. Once he signs, we'll split the commission like we agreed. Keep him happy, keep him distracted. He can't know about any of this until it's done. I didn't move, didn't breathe. I read it again, then again. The words didn't change. I pulled out another letter, then another, each one worse than the last. Instructions on how to handle me, payments transferred to her account, plans discussed in cold, business-like language. All of it orchestrated by Marcus, all of it involving Vanessa. There were bank statements, receipts, text message screenshots printed out and highlighted, proof of every lie she'd ever told me, proof that our entire relationship, at least toward the end, had been a transaction. She hadn't left me because she couldn't handle the pressure. She'd left me because the job was done. One letter, dated just 3 months ago, made my hands shake so hard I almost dropped it. Marcus, I can't do this anymore. He's not the same person. I see it every time I look at old pictures of us. You said this would be simple. You said he'd never find out. But I'm scared. What if he does? What if someone talks? And Marcus's reply, printed on the next page. Then make sure no one talks. You're in too deep now, Vanessa. We both are. If he finds out, we both lose everything. Destroy the evidence, all of it. I don't care how, just make it disappear. I sat there on the wet grass, surrounded by scattered photos and letters, my entire world collapsing around me. The woman I'd loved. The woman I'd trusted with everything. The woman who'd held me when I cried after losing the championship game my rookie year. The woman who'd told me she believed in me when nobody else did. It had all been a lie. And Marcus, the man who'd found me when I was nobody, the man who'd promised to make me a star, the man who'd sat across from my mother at the kitchen table and told her he'd take care of me, the man I'd trusted with my career, my money, my life. He'd been using me from the start. I felt something rising in my chest. Not sadness, not grief. Those would come later. Right now, all I felt was a white-hot rage that burned through every nerve in my body. I stood up, grabbed the suitcase, and walked back toward the house. My phone was in my pocket, somehow still dry, and I pulled it out with trembling fingers. I scrolled to Marcus's name. His last text was still there, unread. Big news tomorrow. Major brand wants to meet. This is the one we've been waiting for. Call me when you land. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I looked out at the dark tree line where Vanessa had disappeared. Somewhere out there, she was hiding, scared, probably thinking I'd call the police, probably thinking this was over. But it wasn't over. Not even close. I needed answers. Real ones. Not the sanitized version Marcus would try to sell me. Not the excuses and justifications he'd rehearsed 1,000 times in case this day ever came. I needed to hear it from her. From Vanessa. I needed to look her in the eyes and ask her one simple question. Was any of it real? I went back inside, changed into dry clothes, and grabbed a flashlight from the kitchen drawer. The beam cut through the darkness as I stepped back outside and headed toward the woods. The trees were thick here, dense with underbrush and fallen branches. The kind of place where you could get lost if you didn't know what you were doing. But I'd walked these woods before. Late at night when I couldn't sleep. Early in the morning when I needed to clear my head before a game. I knew where she'd go. There was an old groundskeeper's shed about half a mile in, hidden behind a cluster of pine trees. It was falling apart, abandoned years ago, but it still had a roof and 4 walls. If she needed a place to hide, that's where she'd be. I walked slowly, the flashlight sweeping back and forth across the path. My mind was racing. Every memory I had of Vanessa was suddenly tainted. Every kiss, every laugh, every late-night conversation about our future together. Had she been acting the whole time? Or had there been moments, even small ones, where what we had was real? I didn't know anymore, and that terrified me more than anything else. After 20 minutes of walking, I saw it. The shed, small and crooked, leaning slightly to one side like it might collapse at any moment. There was a faint glow coming from inside. Candlelight, maybe. Or a phone screen. She was here. I turned off the flashlight and approached quietly. The door was cracked open, just like the front door of my house had been. I pushed it wider and stepped inside. Vanessa was sitting on an old wooden crate in the corner, her knees pulled up to her chest, her face buried in her hands. She was shaking, crying. When she heard me, she looked up. Her eyes were red and swollen. Her makeup was smeared. She looked broken. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then, in a voice so quiet I almost didn't hear it, she said the words I'd been waiting to hear. "I'm sorry." And just like that, everything changed. "I'm sorry." 2 words. That's all she gave me. 2 words that were supposed to erase everything. 2 words that hung in the air between us like smoke from a fire that had already burned everything to the ground. I stood there in the doorway of that abandoned shed, flashlight still in my hand, my clothes damp and cold against my skin. Vanessa sat on that crate, knees pulled to her chest, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. Fragile. Like if I raised my voice, she'd shatter into 1,000 pieces. Part of me wanted to scream. Part of me wanted to grab her by the shoulders and shake her until she told me the truth. But another part of me, the part that still remembered what it felt like to love her, just wanted to understand. So I did the only thing I could do. I walked in and closed the door behind me. The shed smelled like old wood and mildew. There was a single candle burning on an overturned bucket, casting shadows that danced across the walls. She must have had it in her jacket, planned this, knew she'd need a place to hide. I leaned against the wall, arms crossed, and stared at her, waiting. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand and looked up at me. Her voice was hoarse when she finally spoke again. "You weren't supposed to come back tonight. That's what you're leading with?" I said. My voice was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that comes right before the storm. "You break into my house, throw a suitcase full of evidence into my lake, and your first concern is my travel schedule?" She flinched like I'd hit her. "I didn't break in. I still have a key. You never asked for it back." I laughed. It came out bitter and sharp. "A key. Right. Because that makes this okay." She shook her head, tears streaming down her face again. "Nothing about this is okay. I know that. I've known that for a long time. Then why?" I pushed off the wall and took a step closer. "Why did you do it, Vanessa? Why did you lie to me? Why did you let him use you to get to me?" She looked away, staring at the candle like it held all the answers she couldn't give me. "It wasn't supposed to be like this," she whispered. "When it started, I didn't even know what I was doing. Marcus approached me at one of your games, said he wanted to talk, said he needed my help with something important. I felt my jaw tighten. Go on?" She took a shaky breath. "He told me you were going to be a star, that you had this incredible future ahead of you, but you were too distracted, too emotional. He said you needed stability, someone who could keep you grounded while he handled the business side. He said if I stayed with you, if I kept you happy and focused, he'd make sure I was taken care of, financially, taken care of." I repeated the words slowly, letting them sink in. "You mean paid off?" She nodded, her voice breaking. "I didn't see it that way at first. I thought I was helping you. I thought I was part of the team. But then the checks started coming, and the amounts got bigger, and suddenly I wasn't your girlfriend anymore. I was an employee. I wanted to feel something. Anger, betrayal, heartbreak. But all I felt was emptiness, like I was watching this happen to someone else. How long?" I asked. "What? How long were you working for him? How long was our relationship just a contract?" She hesitated. Then quietly, "A year, maybe more. I don't know exactly when it stopped being real and started being a job. It just happened. A year. A year of my life. A year of late-night conversations and shared dreams and moments I thought were ours. All of it fake. all of it choreographed by a man I trusted. I ran a hand through my hair and turned away from her. I couldn't look at her anymore. Why did you keep the letters? I asked. Why didn't you destroy them like he told you to? Because I couldn't. Her voice was small, almost childlike. I tried. I swear I tried. But every time I started to, I'd see your face. I'd remember the way you looked at me, the way you trusted me, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't erase the proof of what I'd done. I thought maybe one day I'd have the courage to tell you the truth, to show you everything and beg you to forgive me. But you never did. No, I never did. Because I'm a coward. I turned back to face her. And tonight? What changed? Why now? She stood up, her legs unsteady. Marcus called me 3 days ago. He said you were starting to ask questions. Said you were getting suspicious about some of the deals he was making on your behalf. He told me to get rid of the evidence, all of it. He said if you ever found out, we'd both be finished. So you came here, to my house, to destroy the only proof that could save me from him. She nodded, tears falling faster now, but I couldn't do it. I got here and I saw the house, and I remembered what we had, what I destroyed, and I realized I didn't want to protect him anymore. I wanted to protect you, even if it meant you'd hate me forever. I stared at her for a long time, trying to see past the tears and the guilt and the performance, trying to find the girl I'd fallen in love with all those years ago. The girl who used to wait for me after practice with a smile and a bottle of water. The girl who told me I was going to make it when I was just a bench warmer with a dream. Was any of it real? I asked, the question I'd been carrying since I opened that suitcase. In the beginning, before Marcus, before the money, did you ever really love me? She looked at me with red, swollen eyes, and for the first time since I'd walked into that shed, I saw something that looked like truth. Yes. Her voice cracked. In the beginning, it was real. I loved you so much it scared me. But then you got famous, and I got greedy, and Marcus got in my head, and I convinced myself that what we had wasn't enough, that I deserved more, that you owed me something for sticking around. She wiped her face with her sleeve. By the time I realized what I'd become, it was too late. I'd already sold us out, and I didn't know how to fix it. I closed my eyes and leaned my head back against the wall. The wood was rough and cold, grounding, real. You can't fix it, I said quietly. What's done is done, I know, but you can help me stop him. She looked up, confused. What? Marcus. He's been playing me for years. You said he's making deals on my behalf. What kind of deals? She hesitated. I don't know all the details, but I know he's been skimming, taking more than his commission, signing you up for things you didn't agree to, using your name and your face to build his own empire. I felt the anger returning, slow and hot. How much? I don't know. Millions, probably. Maybe more. He's careful, keeps everything hidden, but I've seen the way he lives. The cars, the houses, the trips. He's making a lot more than 15%. I opened my eyes and looked at her. Do you have proof? Anything besides the letters? She shook her head. He keeps all the important stuff locked away. Financial records, contracts, emails. I only saw what he wanted me to see. Then we need to get it. She stared at me like I'd lost my mind. You can't be serious. He's dangerous. If he finds out you know, he'll destroy you. He has connections everywhere, lawyers, media, people in the league. He'll bury you before you even get a chance to fight back. Let him try. I pushed off the wall and walked toward the door. I'm done being played. I'm done being the guy who smiles for the cameras while everyone around me gets rich off my name. If Marcus wants a fight, I'll give him one. Vanessa stood up, panic in her eyes. Wait, please, just think about this. You can walk away. Right now. Cut ties with him. Find a new agent. Start over. You don't have to burn everything down. I turned to face her one last time. Yes, I do. Because if I don't, he'll do this to someone else. Some other kid with a dream and a bad sense of who to trust. And I can't live with that. She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. She knew I was right. I stepped out into the night, the cold air hitting my face like a slap. Behind me, I heard her voice, small and broken. What do you want me to do? I paused at the edge of the clearing and looked back at the shed, at the flickering candlelight inside, at the woman who'd loved me and betrayed me, and somehow both at the same time. Tomorrow morning, I said, 9 o'clock. Meet me at the house. Bring everything you have. Every letter, every text, every receipt. If we're going to take him down, we need to do it right. She nodded slowly. Okay. And Vanessa? Yeah? If you run, if you disappear, or go to him or try to warn him, I'll make sure everyone knows what you did. Not just to me, to everyone, every brand, Every sponsor, every teammate who trusted you. I'll burn your name to the ground. Her face went pale. I understand. Good. I turned and walked back through the woods, the flashlight cutting a path through the darkness. My mind was racing, plans forming, strategies taking shape. I'd spent 3 years playing Marcus's game, following his rules, trusting his vision. Now it was time to play my own. When I got back to the house, I didn't go inside. Instead, I sat on the patio, staring out at the lake. The suitcase was still there, open on the grass, its contents scattered by the wind. I pulled out my phone and opened my contacts, scrolled past Marcus's name, past my teammates, past the reporters and the sponsors and the hangers-on. I stopped at a name I hadn't called in months. Mom. My thumb hovered over the call button. It was late. She'd be asleep. But I needed to hear her voice, needed to remember who I was before all of this, before the fame and the money and the lies. I pressed call. It rang 3 times before she picked up. Baby? Her voice was groggy but instantly alert. What's wrong? I leaned back in the chair and closed my eyes. Everything, Ma. Everything's wrong. And for the first time in 3 years, I told someone the truth. My mother didn't say much when I told her everything. She listened. Really listened. The way only a mother can. When I finished, there was a long silence on the other end of the line. I could hear her breathing. Steady. Calm. The same way she'd breathed when I told her I was dropping out of college to go pro. The same way she'd breathed when I called her crying after my first loss in the league. Finally, she spoke. Baby, she said softly, you know what you have to do. I know. Then do it. And don't look back. What if I lose everything? Then you lose it. But at least you'll still have yourself. And that's more than you got right now. She was right. She was always right. We talked for another hour, about nothing and everything. She told me about my little brother, about how he was doing in school, about the new job she'd taken at the hospital. Normal things, human things. Things that reminded me there was a world outside of basketball and contracts and betrayal. When we finally hung up, the sun was starting to rise. Pink and orange light spilled across the lake, turning the water into liquid gold. It was beautiful. The kind of beautiful that made you forget, just for a moment, that the world could be ugly. I went inside, showered, and changed into fresh clothes. By the time I came back downstairs, it was 8:30. Vanessa would be here in 30 minutes. I made coffee, strong and black. Then I sat at the kitchen table and waited. At exactly 9 o'clock, I heard a car pull up outside. Footsteps on the gravel driveway. A hesitant knock on the door. I opened it. Vanessa stood there looking exhausted. She was wearing different clothes now. A simple gray sweater and jeans. Her hair was down, still damp from a shower. She had a backpack slung over one shoulder. Come in, I said. She stepped inside, her eyes darting around like she expected Marcus to jump out from behind the furniture. I closed the door and led her to the kitchen. Coffee? She nodded. Please. I poured her a cup and slid it across the table. She wrapped her hands around it like it was the only solid thing in her world. Did you bring everything? I asked. She reached into the backpack and pulled out a thick manila folder, laid it on the table between us. Letters, bank statements, text message screenshots, emails she'd printed out, everything. I opened the folder and started going through it. Slowly, methodically. Each piece of evidence was another nail in Marcus's coffin, another lie exposed, another betrayal confirmed. There were payments to Vanessa, $50,000 here, $70,000 there, all labeled as consulting fees or marketing expenses, all untraceable unless you knew what you were looking for. There were contracts I'd never seen. Endorsement deals signed in my name with clauses that gave Marcus control over my image, my schedule, my entire public persona. I was basically a puppet, and he was pulling all the strings. And then there were the emails. Dozens of them. Marcus talking to brands, to sponsors, to media outlets, negotiating deals behind my back, promising things I'd never agreed to, selling me piece by piece like I was a product on a shelf. One email, sent just 3 months ago, made my blood boil. Don't worry about him. He does what I tell him to. Always has. Kid's too grateful to ask questions. We can push this through without his approval. I closed the folder and looked at Vanessa. She was watching me, waiting. This is enough, I said. More than enough. What are you going to do? I'm going to take it to a lawyer, someone who doesn't work for Marcus, someone who can tell me exactly what my options are. And then I'm going to end this. She nodded slowly. And what about me? I leaned back in my chair and studied her, really looked at her. The guilt in her eyes, the fear, the hope that maybe, just maybe, I'd find a way to forgive her. I don't know yet, I said honestly, Part of me wants to hate you. Part of me does hate you. But another part of me knows you're the only reason I'm even having this conversation right now. If you destroyed the evidence like he told you to, I'd still be blind. I'm sorry, she whispered, for all of it. I know you are, but sorry doesn't fix what's broken. She looked down at her coffee. I understand. We sat in silence for a moment. Then my phone buzzed on the table. A text from Marcus. Need to meet today. ASAP. Big opportunity. Can't discuss over text. My office. Noon. I showed Vanessa the screen. She went pale. He knows. How? I don't know. But he knows something's wrong. He always does. I stared at the message. Then I typed back. I'll be there. You're going? Vanessa looked at me like I'd lost my mind. You can't. Not with everything we just talked about. He'll what? I interrupted. Try to manipulate me? Lie to me? He's been doing that for 3 years. One more meeting won't change anything. Except this time, I'll know what I'm walking into. She shook her head. This is a mistake. Maybe. But it's my mistake to make. I stood up, grabbed the folder, and walked out of the kitchen. Vanessa followed me, her footsteps quick and nervous. What are you going to say to him? She asked. I'm going to listen. And then I'm going to watch him lie to my face one more time. And then I'm going to walk out and never look back. She grabbed my arm. Please, just be careful. I looked down at her hand on my arm, then up at her face. Always, I said. She let go. I spent the next 2 hours making calls. First to a lawyer my mother recommended. A guy who'd worked with athletes before and had a reputation for being honest. He agreed to meet with me tomorrow morning, said he'd review everything I had and give me his professional opinion. Then I called my brother, told him to stay close to Mom for the next few days. Didn't explain why, just told him it was important. He didn't ask questions. He just said okay. At 11:30, I got in my car and drove to Marcus's office. It was in a high-rise downtown, 32nd floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows with a view of the whole city. Leather furniture. Abstract art on the walls. Everything designed to remind you that Marcus was a big deal, that he had power, that he was someone you didn't cross. I rode the elevator up, my heart pounding in my chest. Not from fear, from anticipation. I was about to look the man who'd betrayed me in the eyes and pretend I didn't know. And part of me was curious to see if he'd slip, if he'd say something that gave him away, if he'd finally show me who he really was. The elevator doors opened. I stepped into the lobby. Marcus's assistant, a young guy in an expensive suit, greeted me with a smile. He's waiting for you. Conference room B. I nodded and walked down the hall. The door was open. Marcus was standing by the window, phone to his ear, laughing at something the person on the other end said. When he saw me, he held up a finger. 1 minute. I sat down at the long glass table and waited. Marcus finished his call, slipped the phone into his pocket, and walked over with his hand extended. That $1 million smile plastered across his face. There he is, my superstar. How was the trip? I shook his hand. Fine. Just fine? You dropped 40 in the fourth quarter. That's more than fine. That's legendary. I shrugged. It's what I do. He laughed and sat down across from me. That's what I love about you. No ego, no drama, just pure talent and focus. I wanted to reach across the table and wipe that smile off his face, but I kept my expression neutral. So what's this big opportunity? Marcus leaned back in his chair, his eyes gleaming. We got a call from a major European brand. They want you to be the global face of their new campaign. We're talking billboards in every major city, commercials during the finals, your face everywhere. And the best part? 20 million over 3 years. 20 million. A year ago, that number would have made me dizzy. Now it just made me suspicious. What's the catch? I asked. No catch. They love you. They love your story. Kid from nowhere who made it big. They want to build their whole campaign around that. And what do they want from me? Marcus slid a folder across the table. Standard stuff. A few photo shoots, some appearances, maybe a commercial shoot in Paris. Nothing you haven't done before. I opened the folder and flipped through it. The contract was dense, pages and pages of legal language. But I saw what I needed to see, buried in the fine print. A clause that gave Marcus full creative control. Another clause that gave him 25% of the deal instead of the standard 15%. He was doing it again, right in front of me. I closed the folder and looked up at him. I need some time to think about it. Marcus's smile faltered. Just a little. Think about it? This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. You can't pass this up. I'm not passing it up. I just need to read through everything. Make sure I understand what I'm signing. His eyes narrowed. You've never had a problem with my deals before. I know, but I've also never had time to actually read them. I've been too busy playing basketball. That's what you pay me for, to handle the details so you can focus on the game. I stood up, tucking the folder under my arm. And you've done a great job. But this is my career, my name. I think I should at least understand what I'm agreeing to. Marcus stood too, his smile completely gone now. What's going on? You've been acting strange. Is someone getting in your head? I met his eyes. No one's in my head, Marcus. I'm just being smart. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he forced the smile back onto his face. Of course. Take all the time you need. Just don't take too long. Opportunities like this don't wait forever. I walked to the door, then paused and looked back at him. One more thing. Yeah? Have you ever lied to me? The question hung in the air between us. Marcus's face didn't change, but his eyes did, just for a second. A flicker of something. Panic. Guilt. Fear. Then it was gone. Never, he said. Everything I've ever done has been for you. I nodded slowly. Good to know. I walked out of his office, down the hall, and into the elevator. As the doors closed, I saw Marcus standing in the doorway of the conference room, watching me, his face unreadable. The elevator descended, and with every floor I felt lighter, clearer, stronger, because now I knew exactly what I had to do, and nothing was going to stop me. The lawyer's office was nothing like Marcus's. No high-rise view, no abstract art, just a small suite in a modest building on the edge of downtown. The furniture was old but comfortable. The walls were lined with law books and framed diplomas. It felt honest, real. His name was David Chen, mid-50s, gray hair, wire-rimmed glasses. He'd played college ball back in the day before an injury ended his career. My mother had met him at a charity event years ago, said he was one of the good ones, someone who actually cared about the people he represented. I sat across from him and slid the manila folder onto his desk. This is everything, I said. David opened the folder and began reading. His expression didn't change as he flipped through the pages. Letters, bank statements, contracts, emails. He read every single word, took notes on a yellow legal pad, asked me questions about dates and details and things I didn't fully understand. After an hour, he closed the folder and leaned back in his chair. How bad is it? I asked. He took off his glasses and rubbed his eyes. It's bad, but it's also fixable. Your agent has been engaging in what we call self-dealing. He's been putting his own financial interests ahead of yours, taking commissions that exceed standard industry rates, signing you to deals without proper disclosure. And from what I can see here, he's been doing it systematically for at least 2 years. Can we prove it? David nodded. With what you've given me? Yes. The paper trail is solid. The emails alone are damning. But here's the problem. Going after him means going public. Once you file a complaint with the league or take this to court, it becomes news. And when it becomes news, your reputation takes a hit. Not because you did anything wrong, but because people love a scandal. They'll dig into your life, question your judgment, ask why you didn't see this coming. I felt my jaw tighten. So I'm supposed to just let him get away with it? I didn't say that. David put his glasses back on. What I'm saying is, you need to be prepared for what comes next. This won't be clean, it won't be quick, and it won't be easy. But if you're willing to fight, I'm willing to fight with you. I looked at him. Really looked at him. There was no slick smile, no sales pitch, just a man offering to help because it was the right thing to do. What do I need to do? I asked. First, we terminate your contract with Marcus. Immediately. I'll draft a letter citing breach of fiduciary duty. Then we file a formal complaint with the NBA Players Association. They'll open an investigation. And depending on what they find, we can pursue civil action for damages. How long will that take? Months. Maybe longer. But the important thing is, we start now, before he has a chance to cover his tracks. I nodded. Do it. David pulled out a fresh legal pad and started writing. While he worked, I sat there and thought about everything that had led me to this moment. Every decision I'd made, every person I'd trusted, every warning sign I'd ignored. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Thought about the deal yet? Brand is getting impatient. Need an answer by end of day. I stared at the message. Then I typed back, I'm passing. 3 dots appeared immediately, then disappeared, then appeared again. What do you mean you're passing? This is $20 million. I mean, I'm not interested. Thanks anyway. The dots appeared and disappeared 3 more times before his response finally came through. We need to talk. In person. Tonight. I didn't reply. David looked up from his notes. Everything okay? I showed him the texts. He read them and frowned. He's panicking. Probably suspects you know something. You should avoid meeting with him until we have everything filed. I put my phone away. I wasn't planning on it. We spent the next 2 hours going over strategy. David explained the legal process, what to expect, what to prepare for. He was thorough, professional. And for the first time since I'd opened that suitcase, I felt like I wasn't alone in this. When we finished, he walked me to the door. One more thing, he said. I need you to be honest with me. Is there anything else Marcus might have on you? Anything he could use to fight back or discredit you? I thought about it. The parties, the late nights, the mistakes I'd made when I was younger and stupider. But nothing that Marcus had been involved in. Nothing he could weaponize. No, I said. I've made mistakes, but nothing illegal. Nothing he can use. David nodded. Good. Because once this goes public, he's going to try everything he can to turn this around. Make himself the victim. Make you the villain. You need to be ready for that. I will be. I left his office and drove home. The sun was setting. The sky was bruised purple and orange. The city looked different somehow. Smaller. Less intimidating. When I got back to the mansion, Vanessa's car was gone. She'd left a note on the kitchen counter. I'm staying with a friend. Call me if you need anything. I meant what I said. I want to help. I crumpled the note and tossed it in the trash. Then I went upstairs, changed into workout clothes, and headed to the home gym I'd built in the basement. I needed to move, needed to sweat, needed to do something physical to quiet the noise in my head. I ran on the treadmill for an hour, lifted weights until my arms shook, shot free throws in the half court until my legs gave out, and when I was finally too exhausted to think, I collapsed on the floor and stared at the ceiling. My phone rang. I almost didn't answer, but then I saw the name on the screen. Coach. Coach Riley had been with me since college. He was the one who'd recruited me, the one who'd believed in me when I was just a skinny kid with potential. He'd retired 2 years ago, but we still talked every few months. He was one of the few people in my life who'd never wanted anything from me except to see me succeed. I answered the call. Coach. His voice was warm and familiar. Kid, how you doing? I've been better. I heard. There was a pause. Marcus called me this afternoon, said you were acting strange, asked if I knew what was going on. I sat up. What did you tell him? I told him I didn't know, because I don't. But I'm asking now, what's going on? I took a deep breath and told him everything. The suitcase, the letters, Vanessa, the lawyer, all of it. When I finished, there was a long silence on the other end. Finally, Coach spoke. I'm sorry, kid. I'm sorry you're going through this. And I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. You couldn't have known. Maybe not. But I should have checked in more. Should have made sure you had people around you who cared about you and not just your paycheck. It's not your fault, Coach. Doesn't matter whose fault it is. What matters is what you do next. And from what you're telling me, it sounds like you're doing the right thing. I hope so. He sighed. Listen to me. This is going to get ugly. Marcus is going to fight back. He's going to try to destroy your reputation. He's going to call in favors and twist the narrative and make you look like the bad guy. But you can't let that stop you. You understand me? You have to see this through. I will. Good. And if you need anything at all, you call me. I don't care what time it is. I don't care what day it is. You call me. Thanks, Coach. I mean it, kid. You're not alone in this. We talked for a few more minutes. About basketball, about life, about staying strong. When we hung up, I felt better. Not great, but better. I went back upstairs, showered, and made dinner. Something simple. Pasta and grilled chicken. I ate at the kitchen table, alone, staring out at the lake through the window. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Marcus. You're making a mistake. Whatever you think you know, you're wrong. We need to talk. Please. I deleted the message without responding. Then I opened my contacts and scrolled to a name I hadn't called in months. My little brother, Jamal. He picked up on the second ring. Yo, what's up? Hey man, just calling to check in. How's school? It's cool. Got a game tomorrow. Coach thinks we might make playoffs this year. That's great. You starting? Yeah, point guard. Just like you. I smiled. That's my boy. We talked for a while. About his team. About his classes. About the girl he liked but was too scared to talk to. Normal stuff. Kid stuff. It reminded me of who I used to be. Before the fame. Before the money. Before everything got complicated. Before we hung up, he asked me a question. You okay? You sound weird. I'm fine. Just been a long week. You sure? Yeah, I'm sure. I paused. Hey, Jamal? Yeah? I love you, man. You know that, right? There was a moment of silence. Then quietly, yeah, I know. Love you too. After we hung up, I sat there for a long time, thinking about everything I'd built, everything I stood to lose, everything that mattered. And I realized something. The fame didn't matter. The money didn't matter. The mansion and the cars and the endorsements didn't matter. What mattered was the people who loved me for who I was, not what I could do for them. And I was done letting anyone take advantage of that. The next morning, David called. The termination letter had been sent. The complaint had been filed. The process had officially begun. 2 days later, the story broke. NBA star in legal battle with agent over alleged fraud. The headlines were everywhere. Sports networks, social media, talk shows. Everyone had an opinion. Some people supported me, said I was brave for standing up. Others questioned my judgment, said I should have known better, said I was just trying to get out of a bad deal. Marcus released a statement through his lawyer, called the allegations baseless, said he'd dedicated his career to helping me succeed, said he was shocked and disappointed by my actions. I didn't respond. David had told me not to. Let the facts speak for themselves, he'd said. But it was hard. Watching my name get dragged through the mud, watching people who didn't know me decide who I was based on headlines and sound bites. The team called, said they supported me but needed me to stay focused. The playoffs were coming. They needed me on the court, not in a courtroom. I told them I understood. My teammates reached out. Some of them supportive, some of them curious, some of them silent. And through it all, I kept playing, kept showing up, kept doing what I'd always done, because basketball was the one thing that still made sense, the one thing that was still mine. And no one, not Marcus, not the media, not anyone, could take that away from me. 3 months passed. 3 months of legal battles and media storms and sleepless nights. 3 months of depositions and investigations and lawyers arguing over words and numbers. 3 months of waiting for the truth to finally come out. But through it all, I played basketball. We made the playoffs, swept the first round, fought through 7 games in the second. And by the time we reached the conference finals, I was playing the best basketball of my life. Not because I was trying to prove something, not because I was running from something, but because for the first time in years, I was playing for the right reasons. For my teammates, for my family, for the kid I used to be who just loved the game. The investigation into Marcus moved slowly, but it moved. The NBA Players Association took my complaint seriously. They brought in forensic accountants. They interviewed other clients. They dug through years of paperwork and contracts and bank records, and they found exactly what I knew they'd find. Marcus had been running the same scheme on at least 4 other players, taking extra commissions, signing deals without full disclosure, hiding money in offshore accounts. He'd built an empire on the backs of kids who trusted him, kids who didn't know any better, kids like me. When the findings went public, everything changed. The media that had questioned me suddenly called me brave. The sponsors that had distanced themselves suddenly wanted me back. The people who doubted me suddenly believed. But I didn't care about any of that anymore. I cared about the 4 other players who'd been victimized. I reached out to each of them personally, offered to help, offered to share my lawyer, offered to stand with them if they wanted to fight back. 3 of them took me up on it. 1 didn't, said he just wanted to move on. I respected that. Marcus's agency collapsed within weeks. His clients left. His partners resigned. His reputation was destroyed. The state bar opened an investigation into his business practices. Civil suits piled up. Everything he'd built came crashing down. And I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not revenge, just a quiet sense of justice. David called me one afternoon with news. Marcus wants to settle. He's offering full restitution plus damages. He'll sign an agreement admitting fault and agreeing never to work in athlete representation again. I was sitting on my patio, watching the lake. The same lake where this had all started. How much? $12 million. Plus legal fees. I thought about it. $12 million. Money I'd earned. Money he'd stolen. Money that represented 3 years of lies and manipulation and betrayal. Take it, I said. You sure? We could push for more. The evidence is solid. I'm sure. I don't want to spend the next 2 years in court. I want to move on. David paused. You're a better man than me, kid. No, I'm just tired. We settled a week later. The money was transferred. The paperwork was signed. And just like that, it was over. But the real work was just beginning. I hired a new agent, Someone David recommended. Someone with a reputation for honesty and transparency. Someone who treated me like a person, not a product. We sat down and reviewed every contract, every deal, every agreement, and we restructured my entire career around one principle: integrity. I started a foundation, something I'd always wanted to do but never had time for. It focused on financial literacy for young athletes, teaching them how to read contracts, how to manage money, how to spot the Marcuses of the world before it was too late. Vanessa reached out a few times, apologized again, said she was in therapy, said she was trying to become a better person. I believed her, but I also knew that some things couldn't be fixed. Some bridges couldn't be rebuilt, so I wished her well and moved on. My brother came to visit, stayed for a week. We played one-on-one in the driveway, watched old movies, talked about everything and nothing. It was the best week I'd had in years. Mom came too, cooked dinner in my kitchen, lectured me about eating better and sleeping more and remembering where I came from. I listened to every word, and slowly, piece by piece, I started to feel like myself again. The conference finals went to 7 games. We were down by 3 with 40 seconds left. The crowd was deafening. The pressure was crushing. The weight of everything, the investigation, the settlement, the media storm, was sitting on my shoulders like a mountain. Coach called timeout, drew up a play, put the ball in my hands. As we walked back onto the court, my teammate Davis grabbed my arm. "You got this," he said. I looked at him, really looked at him. He'd been there through everything, never questioned me, never doubted me, just showed up every day and had my back. "I know," I said. The ball was inbounded. I dribbled up the court. The defense collapsed on me. 2 guys, then 3. The clock ticked down. 10 seconds, 9, 8. I saw Davis cutting to the corner, wide open. I could have passed it, should have passed it. It was the smart play. But something inside me said no. I pulled up from 30 feet. 3 defenders in my face. The ball left my hands. The arena went silent. Time seemed to stop. The ball hit nothing but net. Tie game. Overtime. We won by 8. I finished with 43 points, 12 assists, and the moment that would be replayed on highlight reels for years. But when the buzzer sounded and my teammates mobbed me and the crowd roared, I didn't think about the shot. I thought about the journey, about how far I'd come, about how close I'd come to losing everything that mattered. In the locker room after the game, Coach Riley was waiting for me. He'd flown in for the game, surprised me. When I saw him, I broke down, just completely lost it. Tears streaming down my face. All the emotion I'd been holding in for months finally pouring out. He hugged me, didn't say anything, just held me while I cried. When I finally pulled myself together, he looked me in the eyes. "I'm proud of you, kid. Not because you hit that shot, but because you fought for what was right, even when it was hard, even when it cost you. That's character, that's strength, and that's the man I always knew you could be." I nodded, unable to speak. We made it to the finals, lost in 6 games. It hurt, but it didn't break me, because I knew we'd be back. And more importantly, I knew I'd be okay no matter what happened. After the season ended, I took a month off. No basketball, no media, no obligations. Just time to breathe, to think, to heal. I went back to the neighborhood where I grew up, played pickup games at the park where I learned to ball, talked to kids who reminded me of myself, told them my story, warned them about the pitfalls, encouraged them to chase their dreams but protect their hearts. One kid, couldn't have been more than 12, asked me a question after we finished playing. "Do you regret it? Becoming famous?" I thought about it for a long time. Then I shook my head. No, I don't regret it. But I do regret losing myself along the way. I regret trusting the wrong people. I regret forgetting what really mattered. "What really matters?" he asked. I smiled. "The people who love you, the game, and knowing who you are when nobody's watching." He nodded like he understood. Maybe he did. Maybe he didn't. But I hoped he'd remember it when he needed to. As I drove away from that park, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Not the fake peace that comes from success or money or fame, but real peace. The kind that comes from knowing you stood up for yourself. The kind that comes from knowing you did the right thing even when it was hard. I went home, to the mansion by the lake. The same place where this had all started. Where I'd seen Vanessa throw that suitcase into the water, where everything had changed. But it didn't feel heavy anymore. It didn't feel fake. It felt like home. I walked out to the patio and stood at the edge of the water. The sun was setting. The sky was painted in shades of gold and crimson. The lake was calm, still, perfect. I pulled out my phone and opened my photos. Scrolled back to pictures from years ago. Pictures of me and my family, me and my brother. Me as a kid holding a basketball, grinning like I just won the lottery. That kid had dreams, big dreams. Dreams of playing in the NBA, dreams of being a star, dreams of making his family proud. And I'd done it. I'd achieved everything that kid had ever wanted. But somewhere along the way, I'd forgotten why those dreams mattered in the first place. Not for the fame, not for the money, not for the recognition, but for the love of the game, for the joy of competing, for the feeling of being part of something bigger than myself. I put my phone away and closed my eyes. Let the breeze wash over me. Let the sounds of the lake fill my ears. Let myself just be present, just be human. And for the first time in years, I felt whole. My phone buzzed. A text from David. Final paperwork is done. You're officially free. Congratulations. I smiled and typed back. Thank you for everything. He replied immediately. You did the hard part. I just helped with the paperwork. Proud of you, kid. I looked out at the lake one more time, at the place where the suitcase had sunk, at the place where the truth had been hidden, at the place where everything had changed, and I made a promise to myself. Never again would I let someone else define who I was. Never again would I lose myself in the noise. Never again would I forget what really mattered. I was a basketball player, a son, a brother, a friend, a human being, and that was enough, more than enough. I turned and walked back into the house, back to my life, back to my future. The past was behind me. The lies were exposed. The betrayal was over. And ahead of me was nothing but possibility. I didn't know what would come next. I didn't know where my career would go. I didn't know if I'd win a championship or fade into obscurity. But I knew one thing for certain. Whatever happened, I'd face it on my own terms, with my eyes open, with my heart protected, with the people I loved by my side, and that was the only victory that truly mattered. The suitcase in the lake had held the truth, but it had also held something else, a second chance, and I wasn't going to waste it.